For a lot of part of my life, I lived life with the paradigm of life as a pyramid, right? And the most successful people are at the top of the pyramid, and the least successful people are at the bottom of the pyramid. And we're defined by where we are in the pyramid. It also we kind of compare ourselves by where we are on the pyramid. Who makes more money? Who has more of everything? Now, and there's all kinds of different pyramids. It may not be money. It might not be business. It might be social media. It might be how I look. It may be where I live. There's all kinds of pyramids.
That's right.
But I had a breakthrough and recognized, no, I am a piece of a puzzle, and I uniquely fit this piece. Only I can touch the certain people in my life that that I've been called to work with. Right? There's my family, the people that I come in contact with. That is and only I can uniquely fit that piece that I was created to fit.
Today's episode of The Pro Guide is brought to you by Small Pond Productions, the producers of this podcast. If you're looking to boost your brand's voice with professional end-to-end podcast production, whether it's an interview show or telling stories with audio, we walk you through every step of the process to make you sound great. Head to our website and download the free Podcasting Made Simple guide. 8 critical things you need to know before launching your brand's podcast. It's all available at smallpond.productions. Welcome everybody to this episode of The Pro Guide, where we interview thought leaders in business, technology, creativity, and productivity. And it is our honor today to hang out with Tom Stanfill. In his 26 years as CEO of Aslan, Tom has focused his experience on consulting and developing training programs for inside and field sales organizations, and just an amazing thought leader in this space. So grateful to be able to have him hang out with us for a little bit and get into the why behind what drives him in this organization. So, Tom, so grateful to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me. I already met you previously and briefly, and learned a little bit about what you do, and enjoyed our initial meeting. But then after seeing some of your questions and some things you wanted to talk about, I got really excited, because I love the fact that you want to go deeper and get into the why and talk about purpose and get into the harder questions. Like, I love some of the things you asked about as I was preparing for our conversation. So excited to jump in and see how we can serve your audience.
Yeah, it's mutual. I think that our audience is the type of person that wants to hear a bit more of the backstory. You have the surface level kind of success stuff that shows up for people.
Right.
That all, I love to hear the genesis of what kind of started or grew, and the driving motivation behind that for people. So if you would, I'd love for you just to kind of give us some level setting, some context around what Aslan is as an organization,
okay,
and then also some of what drove you to begin that company.
Yeah. It's an interesting story to me. I think it's interesting because it started out of failure. Really, I'd always been in sales, so selling was something that came very natural to me. And the first company I worked for, I immediately became the number one salesperson. It just was easy for me. I could have been a lot better at what I was doing, but just the getting above the line, as they say in sales, hitting your number was just not something that was very difficult. But then I got out of sales and started doing some other work. I started another company. It wasn't really related to sales. And I failed. So I started a real estate development company, made some bad decisions, and I failed. And so starting this company, which really came out of trying to build another business, which was about selling information. I was a little bit in sales, but it was about selling information. And I recognized that we were making some of the toughest calls you can make in selling something. We were calling cold prospects. I had a team of about 100 people that were making these cold calls trying to sell our information. And it was very, very difficult. Nobody knew us. We were all cold. And I recognized that I had a need to teach them on how to convert cold prospects. It's like the toughest part of selling. And that's kind of when I recognized there really wasn't any companies I could find to help our organization learn how to do that, because I started reaching out to training companies. And long story short, I said, well, I'm pretty good at this. I'm just going to write my own program and teach our people. And it came out of really just struggling and trying to find somebody to solve the problem, which I think is interesting. I think as people have talked to me about being an entrepreneur, A lot of the motivation comes from like, I like the lifestyle, or they like the money, or they like the freedom. It really, successful entrepreneurs come from this idea. They're passionate about solving a problem. And that's what that's what led me to this. I wanted to solve a problem. I wanted to help our organization learn how to do this. So long story short, we wrote a program for our internal team. Some of our clients observed that program as part of vetting our service. And then they said, this is really good. And they started hiring us to train their salespeople. And so it was a kind of a side business. Long story short, I sold the main business and then started a training company with my partner, Tab Norris, who worked for me at the time in 1996. So that's the genesis of Aslan.
I love it. I love also hearing a little bit about this drive to solve a problem that came, alongside of, but even a little bit outside of the entrepreneurial spirit, where there's just something you're focused on. You're like, how do we crack this code that shows up for us? And I'm interested about the key challenges or obstacles that you face when you first start thinking, okay, when you think about cold selling or from a position where somebody isn't even aware of you, there's the educational barrier, there's the attention span barrier, there's a lot of different barriers that are considered obstacles to overcome. How do you even begin chipping away at this thing to say, okay, let's systematize this a bit and figure out a way to get this so that people can do this in a more predictable way?
Yeah, I think what's helpful to people listening to this who are interested in starting their own business is we started Aslan with zero money. I kind of mentioned the failure part. I started the real estate company, and I don't want to get too in the details, but I basically went bankrupt because of an investment I did. The deal worked, but the partnership didn't, and I ended up developing a partnership with somebody that just didn't work out. So I lost all my money really to the government, who took it all because of his tax liens and situation. So I started Aslan with the next company with no money. I bootstrapped that, and when I left that to start Aslan, I had no money. So what I'm about to share is me in a basement along with my partner Tab and no resources. So the barriers were great, and so one of the things you talked about is how do you get attention. So a couple of things that we did that was smart. We got really tight on our focus. So we created a very small niche for us. And so we did this one thing, and I think that was critical. So the sales training is a huge market. Well, we focused, and you said this in your intro, which is not as big a deal now, but back when I started, there was this new emerging role called inside sales. So we said we focus only on inside sales. So that's how we separated ourselves from the big players in the market. And the other thing we did is we kind of outworked the competition we had a little bit of a different process. So we did a ton of work for free.
Okay.
And so we just you said, look, we'll do an assessment of your organization for free. We'll do a pilot program for free. We're just going to demonstrate that we are really good at what we do.
Okay.
And so that was one of the ways that we kind of cracked the door and competed with companies 10 times or even 50 times our size. And there's some other barriers, obviously, that we had to address as well. One of the things was doing the things we hated. I say hate, but I hated to cold prospect. I'm back picking up the phone, doing the calls, doing the work. I think it's so important to say that. It's like you have to do the work that you don't want to do, not forever, but to get started, I had to do that. I also had to deal with fear.
Okay.
A lot of significance, my significance is tied to how well I perform. And so, there was a lot of fear. I'm now in a basement. I've got no windows. I'm struggling.
There's nothing I like better than getting audibly punched in the chin every time I call somebody. Please give me more of that.
Cold calls, and I'm like, I don't even know if it's raining outside. And, and I'm starting to feel like a failure. And being able to push through that and recognize, just focus on inputs, not outputs. This doesn't define who I am. What do I need to do to drive my business, and focus on all the things I need to do on a daily basis. Live one day at a time. I just had we had plans to say, this is what we're going to do today, and trust God with the outcome.
It's really interesting. Not in my notes and questions, but I'd love for you to take a crack at this question. Do you remember a day, or was there a process over time of that desensitization for you, where it's like, I care about what people think, and this is really uncomfortable for me, all the way through till like, hey, this is no big deal. I really don't mind if I hear a no, because I'm just, like you said, focused on the inputs, not the outputs.
Yeah. That is a daily challenge for me.
Okay.
But if I looked at my graph, if I said my fear, and let's just say was 70%, When I started, it might be 15% now. But it still rears its head. On certain days, I might feel a certain way. So I literally have to daily, there's certain things I do on a daily basis, which is some of the maturing and some of the things that I've learned to kind of recenter myself, work through my fears. And it has to do with what I do now. Like, I don't have a lot of fear on a day-to-day basis related to in my role. But if I have to speak, for example, to a certain size crowd, I can just be overwhelmed with fear. But I've learned ways to get recentered on the truth, and realize this is not my identity. I am not defined by my ability to speak or my ability to achieve. I'm not going to use the world standards to define my success. I have a creator. I have designed for a purpose. I have a specific assignment. And I think one of the breakthroughs for me, Andrew, probably in the last 4 or 5 years, is realizing that I think for a lot of part of my life, I lived life with the paradigm of life as a pyramid, right? And the most successful people are at the top of the pyramid, and the least successful people are at the bottom of the pyramid. And we're defined by where we are in the pyramid. It also kind of compare ourselves by where we are on the pyramid. Who makes more money? Who has more of everything? Now, and there's all kinds of different pyramids. It may not be money. It might not be business. It might be social media. It might be how I look. It may be where I live. There's all kinds of pyramids.
That's right.
But I had a breakthrough and recognized, no, I am a piece of a puzzle, and I uniquely fit this piece. Only I can touch the certain people in my life that that I've been called to work with. Right? There's my family, the people that I come in contact with. That is and only I can uniquely fit that piece that I was created to fit. And so that kind of changed. That's why I return to that truth every day to remind myself, and I am not defined by where I am in the pyramid, because I'm always going to bump into people. I mean, I was just in Vail skiing recently, and it's like, everybody's just got, it's like the amount of money.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about what I don't have. I start to look back up the pyramid.
Yeah,
and then I think less about, rather than go, and the other thing is you don't want to look down on the pyramid. You don't want to go, well, these people have less than me, so therefore I'm better than. It's just very immature, ineffective, unproductive way to look at life. Yeah. And so I think we grow up in that system.
I love all this territory that you're talking through. And talk to me a little bit about the process of you're starting to see some predictable, at some level, results, or at least predictable behaviors that drive the right kind of results. At what point do you start to say, you know what, I think we need to distill this into something that is more of an artifact that we can hand off and train to other people? And maybe there's makings of a book here, there's a framework, there's something that we need to do where we can kind of start to scale this ability to think in this certain way.
That started to evolve pretty quickly, that we recognized that we needed to package it. And we needed to learn how to drive change, and so create sticky concepts, that will transfer so that somebody hears it, understands it, can apply it. The brain can only absorb so much, right? It's like a sponge, so you can't just say, here's all the truth that you need, and how do we break it down? And so that has been something we've worked on and continue to try to improve. Since day one, is how do we package it? And I think that's one of the things we recognize at first, which is one of the fears we had, is, okay, can we really do this? Are we any good at this? And that's kind of where I would just say, let's continue to move down this path and focus on the response that we get from our customers. What works, what doesn't, remove ourselves from it, and be focused on how does it impact them, and cut what doesn't work and keep what does. And that was a journey, and ultimately it led to a book that I wrote about some of the core concepts that we teach, which is really, we can get into that if needed, but it's all really about how do we influence and convert the most unreceptive people, the people who are emotionally closed, the people that don't want to hear from us, the people, where the soil's not fertile, so we try to plant the seed, but it's not going to be, you can't plant the seed because the soil's not fertile, and we just keep trying to get better seeds, and we keep trying to perfect our message. But we've got to first create receptivity before we can plant the seed. So we kind of landed on that was the core concept, and how do we package that in a way that's easily transferable?
Just one question deeper about that. One, what is the name of the book? I do want to know that. And then number two, a first step for somebody that's actually thinking about, man, that's exactly what I've been trying to do. I've been trying to sit there and throw something against the wall, and there's just no receptivity back toward me. How do I cultivate that in a way that maybe change their attitude toward being interested in what I have to say?
Yeah. Well, that's the name of the book's called Unreceptive, a better way to sell, lead, and influence. So if you want to create, so the first step is to recognize when someone's emotionally closed. The more you try to persuade them, the more closed they become. And I love to think about teenagers because because the idea of logic working on a teenager, you're like, oh, that ain't going to work. I mean, it's like, so how do you, so that's the most unreceptive typically. Oh, I know what I'm doing.
That's right.
All right. So the first thing you got to recognize is this isn't a logic thing. I can't take them to court. No one's in court. I remember learning that in marriage. I would get in an argument with my wife and I'm like, okay, we'll just make a logical argument. I'm going to take her to court and the best logical argument will win, right? The problem is there's no jury, there's no judge. It doesn't work that way, right? So to influence people, you have to first create a fertile soil. So that's the first step. The second step is to develop a new mindset, right? Control is just an illusion. The more you try to pressure somebody, the more unreceptive they come. So you can't try to manipulate them. You can't try to convince them. You can't try to coerce them. You got to create freedom to choose. You got to, what we call, this is one of those sticky concepts. Instead of doing the tug of war, trying to pull them to your position, you need to drop the rope.
So good.
Yeah, you need to drop the rope.
Dang,
you need to say, hey, if this is what you want to do, that maybe works best for you. Are you open to talking about something else? And you got to put all options on the table because trying to control somebody is not going to work. It's just an illusion and it robs you of the opportunity to influence. So we have to always create space. Some people talk about, well, how do you influence without authority? Authority position does not give you the opportunity to influence. It may get you in the room, but it doesn't mean you influence. Influence is about changing people's beliefs, and you can't force people to change their beliefs. So you can't control people. And the other thing people don't understand about mindset and becoming a person of influence is that you really have to look at your motive. Is this about you or is it about them? And so that's something that's easy to gloss over, but most people have a selfish motive because we always default to self. It doesn't make you a bad person. It's just what we do. And so like when I'm preparing for this podcast, I default to self. All right. That's my default. How am I going to look? What do I need to say? How am I going to be perceived? How will we use it? It's not about serving your audience. I have to stop and I have to make a decision. It's either about me or it's about you. It's either about me, about performance, or it's about me serving. And so those are a couple of the things that we talk about foundationally in the book. And there's some tactical skills that you need to learn throughout every stage of influence. Like how do you take the trip and validate their point of view? How do you position something in a way that you say it in a way that communicates that your peers, not talking down to them, or you're not acting like you're less important than them? How do you package things where they can feel it and sense it emotionally? So those are some of the things that we talk about in the book.
I would love to, I don't know why, but I just feel like this is a great direction to take this. Speak to the person that is maybe stuck in the fight or flight and they hear you saying that, like where they're like, okay, I'm supposed to be making this about them and giving them space and, drop the rope and all of that sounds amazing. But like, I got to eat 3 meals a day. I really got to take care of business here or things are not going to go well. And you're in that space where you're thinking about like more constriction than abundance. What do you say to the person that kind of finds himself in that mindset?
Okay, so remember, I started Aslan. I had zero money. I mean, I'm talking about zero money. I put all my money that I made in the next company that I started, and that went. I mean, that's so I didn't have the access to that money, so I had no money, and I had 4 children. So that question does not land on me like, what are you talking about? I mean, I remember getting 2 speeding tickets and started crying in my car because I couldn't afford to play the second one. It wasn't a speeding ticket. The guy said I ran a stop sign. And I'm like, I didn't run. I mean, I was like, this was like the last straw. I mean, I have no money. Yeah, I have no money.
Yeah.
And my wife didn't work outside the home. She had a 20-hour day, but she didn't work outside the home. So we're struggling. So that question, I had to answer that question. And here's the short answer: you are more effective when you serve your customers. You will make more money when you serve your customers. That's the bottom line. I remember having an opportunity where was meeting with CNN, Turner Network. I think it was CNN. It was a division of Turner. Big opportunity for me. And I remember I kept trying to figure out how to sell her. The initial question she asked me was, do you do certain kinds of training? And the honest answer was no. And that's what I should have said. But I needed to feed my family. So I started making up stuff. And not only did I not win that opportunity, I lost the opportunity to sell her ever again because she could tell. Because here's the thing that we got to remember. Motive is ultimately transparent. When I was trying to sell her something I did not have, she knew it. And so that closed the door on a relationship with her. So I'm always more effective when I put the customer first. I'm better, right? I'm more grounded. People believe me. I ask better questions. I listen to them when they talk. They open up and tell me things they don't tell other people. And so it leads to more success. Now, you could argue I could lie about, in a specific situation and probably try to get them to buy something from me. But that's, when you look at really the money that you need to make, you're just better off. You're going to be more successful, more fulfilled if you focus on serving your customer. And once I realized that, and I did, that was a breaking point for me after the CNN meeting, I didn't do it again. I mean, I'm sure I default to self at times. I mean, it's funny, after COVID. Yeah. When COVID hit, we were struggling. I found myself gravitating and being tempted, trying to get the customer, people to do it. But man, when I'm free and I just tell people the truth, they want to talk to me. They want to work with me. I'm different.
So good, Tom.
Now, that also doesn't mean, here's the thing, the people that are really good at that usually aren't very proactive. Like you said, the fight or flee. That message works great for the fighter. Right? They're like, they need to quit fighting and they need to serve. Well, for people that flee, they basically say, you're not interested, I'm leaving. No, I can't do that. Like, do you do this kind of program? No, I don't. And then they just leave.
Go on. Yeah.
Right. That's like, sorry. So there's a way to serving doesn't mean being weak, and it doesn't mean you're reactive. Serving means you lead in another centered way. Your job is to find out what the problem they have, determine if you can solve it. If you can, then lead them to the solution. But you need to be, if you're in sales, you're in a leadership position.
It's so terrifying, but it is true. It feels like you're jumping off the cliff just trying to see if you're going to fly or not, or it's just like, there's no promise of anything in return. And yet I'm deciding in advance with, looking at the facts of the situation, I'm still going to have this abundance mindset. There's a level of trust there that, on before you go through it is terrifying. But after you go through it, you're like, why would I have not done this any other way?
No, and the reason, and here's back to the fear thing. And what fear is self-centered.
Okay.
It's about not getting what you want or losing what you have, right? So when we shift our fear, set it aside and say, I get that. But when I'm with my customer or whoever I'm wanting to influence, it's about helping them get what they want. What do they want? What do they need? How can I help you do that? And when I'm doing that with sincerity, and I'm struggling to try to, if they say things like, well, I don't know what I want, or I don't know if you can provide what I need. You say, I don't either. Let's go through that process together. That's the right. I remember one company one time saying, and this is during COVID, where this is what I did. I defaulted to sell. And they said, well, Tom, why should you be a good partner for us? The answer to that should have been, I just met you. I don't know if I am.
Wow.
That's right. That communicates such confidence to them. Like, I don't need you. I don't need to do surgery on people who'd have a need for surgery.
That's right. That's right.
I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I do these types of surgeries. My job is to figure out if you have that. And by the way, I'm the surgeon. I should lead.
That's right.
Right? I don't need to go tell me what
of like.
Yeah. And so we diminish
where it's like,
our
I need
role.
to convince myself why I'm a good fit for you. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I'm curious though, like when you think through, Tom, the all the different things you've seen in the 25 years that you've done this, is there what you would consider to be a lesson that you've learned that was one of the hardest lessons that you've learned so far? It could be this lesson of fear, defaulting to fear versus transitioning the mindset to say like, okay, I'm here to give, I'm here to serve. Professionally, I'm here for the needs of the other person. Or is there something that kind of emerges as like, you know what, this was actually the hardest thing that I've had to learn, and I'm continuously, either it was the hardest one for me to beat and I'm on the other side of it, or this is something that still kind of reemerges and I have to deal with it.
Yeah. the hardest thing for me to learn, and another way I could phrase the answer to this is the thing I wish I knew when I could tell the 30-year-old Tom or the 28-year-old Tom, is to seek and embrace my weakness and my gap. Seek and embrace my gaps. I was so afraid of my gaps that I didn't get coaching and I didn't really want to know. But seek, what is it? Okay, here's the reality. I am not good at everything. I am uniquely created to do certain things. I have an assignment and I've been given the talents and the abilities to complete that assignment. But I'm going to have to learn things to do it. And there's certain assignments I do not have. I am not very good at managing people. I am not very consistent, right? I'm not very clear. I'm a creative type, right? So organizations need clarity and they need management. I'm not very good at that. So I need to surround myself with people who are good at that. And that's just beautiful, right? And that becomes a beautiful thing. And to lift them up and say, you're better at this and you do. But I was so afraid of, looking at the sign above my head that everybody could see. And that's reality. You have a sign above your head and everybody knows it. Everybody goes, yeah, he's definitely this way and he definitely can't do that, but he doesn't know it. And people have a sign above their head and they need to find it. So what is it? Seek it out, embrace it, and then organize your life around it. Like either stop doing it and bring in people, or you got to get better at it. Most of the time it's about stop doing it.
That's right.
I mean, I just brought in somebody in our organization who's phenomenal at managing. He's 31 years old. And so I'm asking him to start joining some of my meetings to help me manage more effectively. Or he'll take over a meeting and I'll say, good, you do it. That doesn't make me weak. It makes me a better leader to recognize. So that's my number one gap. And now I'm getting coached by everybody. I'm like, come on in. But I was so afraid of being exposed. You're going to see who I really am.
I've been slowly, this is something I feel like I'm slowly learning. For the person that maybe this is news to, oh shoot, I can't be good at everything, or I need to specialize, or surround myself. And it's not a sign of weakness if I do admit that. And the sooner that I find out what those things are, the better. Do you have any good first steps for a person that needs to start walking toward their messes, but they don't know where those messes are?
I think the first step is to embrace that it's good news, right? Know that you are uniquely created for an assignment. I think that's a break. And when you are in that role, you come alive. Some of the things I've done, and I spoke at a UGA, University of Georgia, to a group of fraternity leaders and talking about some of the things we're talking about now. And I'm like, I love it. This is what I was created to do. This makes me so alive. I don't care if I got paid. I didn't get paid any money. I could care less about money. I just loved it. That's the vision. It's knowing that God has created you to do something that you will just absolutely love. Frees you up to say, well, what don't I love? Because you're trying to be somebody you're not. And by the way, that makes you a beautiful person. When you walk into a room and say, I am created to do this, but I'm not created to do that, and I'm not insecure about it. You are so attractive because you're so grounded. You're not trying to become something you're not. And so, of course, living on this planet for a while, you kind of learn that the hard way. So I'd say that's number one. Number two, I'll give you one more thing. Seek somebody you trust.
Okay.
Right, and try to figure out what's on your side. And that could be a consultant that you hire, a mentor, but find somebody that you really trust that will encourage you, because what's on your sign that you can't see are the hidden talents that you don't know that you have, right? There's things that we're all just, it's our genius. We have a genius. Everybody has a genius, right? And so when you find that, have somebody that'll tell you your genius, but also say, hey, people in my organization, I've invited them in, and I'll say, what am I? And I mean, I've learned so much about myself that have helped me in my marriage and my relationship with my family and the relationships that matter most. They tell me things like, oh, wow, I do that. And it's painful. It's painful, but it's so good to work through it.
It's the pruning, the carving away, and it's the focus that lets you go further, faster. Talk to me about when you are operating in that space of, it it should be your genius, or it should be the space where you thrive the most. You consistently get good results there. Number one, are there times where, you know what, I just woke up and it's Monday morning and it's dreary outside and I just feel blocked? I just feel like there is just something stuck and I don't know what it is or why. Can't explain it. Maybe I need coffee. Have no idea. What do you do in those situations where you're like, I need to, I'm generating value. People are counting on me to generate value in this way. Predictably. How do you kind of get the motor going again to get yourself unstuck when you feel that blockage?
One of the things that I've started doing is, and this has been a little bit of a tough season for me because of how COVID affected our business, but it's also how it affected how we work together. Like I'm a people person, right? I just love to be around people. I'm a people. What is that movie? Office. What is it? Office Space or whatever.
I've got people skills.
I'm a people person. I always think of that. I'm a people person. I'm very relational. Good. I get energized around people. I mean, I am extrovert to the max. So it's been tough for me in this season where everybody's virtual. You're right, where you're just having these kinds of meetings and then you're gone and everything's kind of, there's no hanging. So, and it's also just our business was challenged with some we do public workshops, right? So that's a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
So, with that, just a little bit of background, I've been recentering myself with the truth. I think that's the answer to the question is truth. I have to come back to the truth. You believe what you hear. That's a principle. Like whatever you listen to, you believe, whether it's true or not. And so I have to come back to the truth and spend time. Like I've been praying through Psalm 23 every single morning. And I have certain things that I kind of pray through and remind myself of the truth through each one of the verses. And so I ground myself in the truth. And so when fear comes in, there's a question I asked, and Louis Giglio has, I heard this from Louis Giglio, who wrote a book. What's the book? Don't Let the Enemy Have a Seat at Your Table. And he said this, who told you that? Who told you that? And so when the thought comes in, I ask the question, who told me that? And so then that brings me back to the truth. Well, Tom, you can't do that. You're not smart enough. That's something I think a lot. The reason that you aren't able to do this is because you're just not that smart. Who told you that? Right? That's not the truth. It's not about how smart. It's about, it's what I'm called to do. And well, they have a lot more money. Therefore, well, who told you that? Well, they must be happy. Who told you that? So that's been that was kind of a breakthrough thing, hearing Louis say that on a podcast about his book, Don't Let the Enemy Get a Seat at Your Table. And the other thing is I get help. Is when I get stuck, I ask for help. Sometimes I think about it as like you're locked in a closet and it's kind of dark and you're stuck and you're like, you can't see anything. It's like, and you can't even get the door open. It's like, you got to call somebody. You got to say, I need help. I can't. And so I'm a big believer in, I can't do it alone. I know that's so cliche-ish, but there are people that are in my life that I reach out to and I call. And so those are a couple of things. I mean, there's other things when I've got a big project and I'm stuck and I need to get a project done and it's a hard project and it's heavy. There's some other things that I do that are more practical about, like writing the books, super hard for me. So I have kind of certain things I've learned to do that, but those are probably more the bigger picture, I guess, sort of truths that I've landed on.
Super practical, and I appreciate you kind of distilling it to like the just the what's next level. I really think that's helpful for a lot of people. For what you're looking at in your day-to-day kind of ground level, just daily activity, do you have anything that shows up when we ask the question of what's inspiring you currently? So you mentioned Louis Giglio on a podcast. Is there a podcast, a book, a talk, even just something that shows up in a relationship as you're having conversations with the people that, man, this has been a source of inspiration for me. It's given me a lot of energy and I'm excited about it. It's something that I can draw from as I'm moving forward. I love asking this question because you kind of hear what's latest and loudest for somebody.
So I'll give you a kind of a for intellectual answer and a spiritual answer. So the latest kind of the book that I think was most moved by recently is this book, Strength to Strength. Have you heard about this by Arthur Brooks?
I have. Yes, I have.
And I think
read
it obviously resonates with me because of my age, because it's more about people that have sort of gotten to a certain point in life and then how they need to transition. But I think what really caught my attention, because the book is kind of sold as a happiness book, but it really, to me, it's really talking about peace and joy. You know, how do you be more contentment with this crazy life that we live in and all the information, things are just, we're all so overwhelmed and there's so much competition and we're so inundated with information about who's doing what. And so it could just be, I think, a very tough time to find peace and joy. And one of the things he talks about in that book is attachments and how we have attachments to things. And that robs us of our peace and joy. And so it's really an impact. It impacted me. That was a book that I would highly recommend. He's also got, he's on a lot of podcasts, really long podcasts too. So you get a lot of his truths from listening to some of his podcasts. Something that came to mind is when you said that there's a YouTube video out right now called Agnes Day. And there's a Passion conference every year for college students. They come to learn about God. So think about college students making the trek to Atlanta. They come from all over the world, 60,000 college students in the Mercedes-Benz. And so the Passion Band is leading worship, and all of a sudden it breaks out into this spontaneous worship song, and it goes on for about 20 minutes. And it is one of the coolest. And as you asked, this is just being honest with you. Yeah. So there's about a kind of a beginning of the song, sun comes through the dome and lands on the stage where they're worshiping. And it was one of those moments where everybody just started weeping. And so I was there. And then I've watched the video multiple times. I share it with people. So that's been a cool thing because I think...
I had to look at it. Yeah, I haven't seen it. I know the song, but I haven't seen this video.
So when I'm doing well spiritually, I'm doing well in every other area of my life. That's a kind of truth to that.
So good. So good. Maybe one more question, Tom, and then we'll let you roll. But
I got nothing else to do, Andrew.
Well, in that case, this will be a 3-hour podcast. Here we go.
I'm enjoying our conversation.
Buckle in, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Me too. And I'd love to know if you had the 15 minutes of fame, the billboard, the message to the world regarding leading an organization that makes an impact. Because what I do hear in our conversation, even just now, is this desire to really make a dent, and not just for entrepreneurship's sake, but really there's something deeper here. This idea that I'm created, I have an identity, and this identity that's been created has real work to do in this world. And that's actually an exciting and empowering thing. For somebody that, or just for anybody that's out there listening, what would your message, man, if I could just wave a magic wand and get everybody to get this one thing, what would that be?
Yeah, but I'm going to give you,
give me 5, that's fine.
It's hard for me to give you one. I want to give you 2.
Please.
Because I want to talk to people who don't think of themselves in a leadership role and people that think of themselves in a leadership role, right? So the people that don't think of themselves in a leadership role, you are. Right. And so my mission in life is to help people understand how to better communicate and influence, because how it impacts the thing that we care about the most, which is our relationship. Right. We don't care. We're never happy in our relationships. Nothing matters more. I say anytime I speak or lead a workshop, I say, is there anything you care about more than your relationships? And I've never had anybody in all the years say, oh yeah, actually I care more about money. Intuitively, nothing really matters more than the people.
Yeah.
And so we all have the power to change the people around us, and also how we communicate, because communicate is the oil that makes the relationship engine work. And so without the words that we use and how we communicate, it can change people's lives. It can change people how they see themselves. I mean, we remember the things that people say to us that say, I will always remember when so-and-so said that to me. And also remember, I remember the person said this negatively to me, and it's always in the back of my head. Yeah, I'm kind of that guy. So I love for people to understand and embrace the power that they have and learn how to be better at communicating. Because when you hang out with people, most people, and this is the genesis of the company, this is why I wanted to start the company, people suck at it. Right? People are not very good at communicating. They don't know how to listen. They don't know how to respond. They don't know how to communicate their point of view in a way that helps the other people. It's really not that difficult. So that's one of the things I'm passionate about, is learn the impact that you have and learn how to influence others in a way that's going to propel them to something better. The other thing I would say, if you know you're a leader, and this is kind of my original answer. People will follow you if you're for them. That's something I say all the time. People will follow you if you're for them. And what do I mean by for them? That means that your purpose in life is to serve. Right? So if you're a leader, it's either about getting people to do what you want them to do so you win, or it's about helping them win and you'll win because you help them win. So it's about purpose. The other thing it's about humility. Right? If I'm for you, I'm going to work on me. Because if I get, so this reveals our feedback. We're resistant to getting feedback. What we're really saying is, I want to protect my identity, my brand, and how I feel in lieu of helping you, or I want to get better, so therefore I'm going to get feedback and I'm going to humble myself so I can be a better leader. And by the way, when you seek feedback as a leader, your team will seek feedback.
Golly.
You'll drive your culture. And then the last thing I would say is that you're for them based on your actions. We talk about something at Aslan called serve more, right? Other-centered people, that's a term we use, other-centered people serve more. They care more, they learn more, they do more. And if you're for people, then you're going to care. They're going to say things, and you're going to go, I care about what you say. I was just listening to a call we're doing some assessments. I was listening to a call, and the agent said something about it. The customer said something about it was their best year ever. Person didn't even care. It's just so rare for somebody to say, well, I don't really, it's your year. It's not my year. Let's stop. I mean, when I wrote the book and I came out of it, which was a major thing for me to write a book, for me to write a book. I'm not saying for other people, for me to write a book. Very few people could care less about the fact that I did it. It just didn't matter.
Sure.
It just really didn't. I mean, it just came out. I would go meet with friends. We'd have lunch. It didn't even come up, which is fine. I don't expect, it's not about them. It's about how do I need to learn from that. Then my question, self is, do I care? Do I care about people? Do I care about you? Do I care about what's going on in your world? Or is it just all about me? And so that's the billboard. People will follow you if you are for them. And that can be a parent talking to a teenager. It can be a leader talking to a team member. It could be a husband talking to a wife, or a wife talking to a husband, because we all are in a leadership position.
What I love about this, Tom, is you haven't made anybody wrong for wanting, or, I want a better life for myself. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to do, fill in the blank with whatever it is that aspiration is. But it's really about that sequence where it's like, okay, are you caring first about what the needs are of somebody else, and how can you serve them in that way? And then, by the way, this will happen too. It's about alignment. And I know I get it switched a lot. So it's just it's actually really encouraging to hear that, to say, no. It's not that you need to kill, a slice of your identity and just become this mindless robot, or a doormat, that gets stepped all over.
It's just really counterintuitive. Like, we all want to be attractive. God made us to want to be liked and attractive. And so, I mean, those are all qualities that were instilled in us, but it's counterintuitive. What makes you attractive is serving other people. Like, we walk into a room, we're going to go to a party or dinner party or some function, and we think about what we're going to wear, and we think about what we're going to say, and we think about who we're going to hang out with, and we think about what we're going to do, and that doesn't make us attractive. Walking in the room going, I'm here. Right now, if we're famous, that feels good for a second. But what makes us attractive is the people, how we treat other people. And then they want to be with us. I heard Andy Stanley say this: being selfish robs you of the very thing self wants.
Golly,
like,
mic drop.
That's so good.
Oh, gosh.
That's so good. It's like, I don't have to give up. I get, being other-centered gives me what I want. What I want is like, it's a great,
I mean, you think about efficiency.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's just counterintuitive. It's so counterintuitive. I'm not really sure why. I'm not sure why it's counterintuitive, but it is. It's like all the good things, the really good things, are counterintuitive.
I'm going to leave it there. That's amazing,
Beautiful.
Tom. It's so good. How can people on whatever level stay in touch, connect with you, find out what you're doing, or be in your orbit some way or another? I mean, just all the ways.
I would love, you could follow me or connect with me on LinkedIn, right? That's an easy way to where everything that kind of leads to all avenues, whether if, it leads to Aslan Training, that's a company that I run, and or there'll be information about the book, or you can just go check out the book, Unreceptive. There's also a website for the book, unreceptivebook.com, and you can find it wherever books are sold, as they say. People go, where can I find the book? Just wherever, just type.
Probably not at a clothing store.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
I know. It can't be sarcastic, but that's what I want to say. I don't know how to, where would you, yeah. Like, where do you find the podcast? Where any place they do podcasts. But anyway, thanks for having me on, Andrew.
Yeah, Tom, this has been amazing. I'm so grateful. I do not take lightly the fact that you gave us an hour of your time. So grateful for that. Thanks for being on.
Loved it, my friend.
And our thanks to all of you for listening. If you're looking for a quick way to make our day, a review in iTunes or subscribing to this podcast would mean the world to us. Our thanks to Small Pond Productions for sponsoring. And this was The Pro Guide. Learn from leaders, change your life. See you, everybody.